And so I want to get a gauge, Brian, on our audience to find out a little bit more about their experience with this topic. I was a little surprised last week how many people own a rental property, right? So let's see how many of our folks have done a creative financing deal. All right, let's see here. You're gonna hopefully see on your screen, whether mobile or desktop. Have you ever purchased a property with creative financing? Yes or no on that? Yes or not yet, I should say. I don't know what the number is going to be. Brian, you got any guesses?
I'm going to go with a pretty low percentage. Not very many people know much about creative finance. Go ask an agent, and you're probably not going to get much more than a deer in headlights because it's just not traditional real estate.
See, I was thinking maybe like the 80-20 rule. I was thinking maybe 20%. Um, but here the numbers are coming in, and Brian, right now we're at 15% have done it.
Okay.
So we'll share the results right now. So for those of you that have, excellent. I hope it was a good experience. We're going to be opened up for Q&A throughout this experience. So if you all got questions as we go through each one of these kinds of creative financing, you'll be able to ask that. Because I know for some people, Brian, they get into a deal with creative financing and wish they didn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And Marvin had a great comment. I know the concept, but it's very difficult to convince sellers. We're definitely going to talk about that.
Yes, we are, Marvin. That's a great call. That's a great call. Okay. So now we'll move to, for those of you, I know it's a small number. Oh, I had to sneeze almost. This is live. Here we go. What type of financing have you done? I know it's only 15%, but still wanted to get a gauge for everybody on which ones they had done before. And all right, so a couple are saying owner financing, Brian. A few are saying subject to, a few with lease option. We're going to explain what each of these are. Brian and I will go into it. We'll give you examples. You'll understand what they are. We're going to simplify it for you. That's one of the things I've been passionate about for all these years of coaching. And that's what people have told us on our YouTube channel and the feedback we've received over all these years is we take complicated matters and we make them simple. Things that you can not only understand, but then you can apply them and you can go out there and you can go do these deals. All right. Well, here's what we've got. I will share the results, and it looks like most have done owner financing that have done these deals. A few have done subject to, and a few have done lease options. So yeah, we'll spend some time on owner financing, but we're going to fill in those gaps with subject to and lease option for you all. I think you're really going to appreciate what you learn from that because when you broaden those horizons, you can do so many more deals. All right. In order for us to cover this topic, we need to make sure that your eyes are open. So here's what I'd like for you to do. Go ahead and share in the chat. What animal do you see? What animal do you see there, Brian?
Can't give it away. One's easy, one's not.
What do you mean one's not? Okay, so there's a second one, huh? We got some ducks. All right. We got some duck fans. Oh, now Kevin threw out an interesting. Oh, and Pearl, they said both a duck and a bunny. So does anybody see the who said duck? Does anybody see that rabbit there as well? If you change the way you look at that picture, you see a duck now and a bunny. It takes a little bit, right? So again, if it's a bunny, all the what was a beak are now ears. You see that, and then the bunny doesn't really have a mouth. But all right, so why share that with you? It's because with creative financing, you do have to look at things differently. What we have found is that those that have been in real estate for a long period of time, that especially agents and mortgage brokers, they struggle with these topics because their first reaction is that doesn't work in my area, or that's illegal, or that just doesn't work. And all of that's incorrect. It's just that they're seeing things from the wrong perspective. I love this quote from Wayne Dyer. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I'll say that again. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to help you all take a look at real estate from a different perspective. And by doing that, you're all of a sudden going to open up new opportunities that would only exist through creativity. And I'm such a huge fan also of the topic of creativity because in my own business life, my biggest problems have always been solved with creativity. And it's been the bedrock, Brian, of our of how we've taught investing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep. Thinking outside the box.
So as Brian, so as laws have changed, as markets have changed, as entire industries have changed, how have we thrived while others have struggled?
Well, I think fundamentally we work, of course, with people that have out of the box problems. And as opposed to trying to fit everything into the traditional box, we, as you said, we look for creative solutions. And when we build teams actually of folks that don't look for the excuses of why things won't work, they search for they enjoy the challenge of how can I make this work? How can I solve this problem? Because for most folks that we work with, this is the biggest asset they'll ever own, and hence the biggest problem they've ever faced in their life. So it's really important to get the right solution.
By the way, Brian, Karen said she's been a realtor for 25 years. So it's the Karens of the world that sometimes, because of what they've been told over and over again, and their continuing education classes, and the mortgage brokers they deal with, and their broker boss, and sometimes they're the ones that hear all that and they only see that traditional track. Of course, Karen, you're with us tonight, so obviously you're creative, but and that's what happens when beginners get into this business and they learn from people like us. They hear from the rest of the industry, oh, that doesn't work, or that doesn't work around here. And it's because they don't see the bunny, they only see the duck, you know? But of course, I'm not saying that about you, Karen, because you're here with us. All right. Well, now that we have our minds opened, let's first establish the foundation that the best deals are not just found, they are created. We're going to create our deals through creativity. We're going to make the deals. Now, yes, you have to have a motivated seller. Yes, it has to be an off-market seller because if Karen has the property listed, that's not going to be an opportunity that we can work with. She's going to get that on the MLS. She's going to find the highest price buyer, and we applaud her for that. And 95% of deals are going to be done that way, and that is fantastic. That's how the majority of the wheels of our industry go round. However, for that 5%, that's where we shine. And we create opportunities utilizing these different creative financing techniques and using out-of-the-box thinking. So if you remember nothing else tonight, remember that the best deals are not just found, they are created. So how do we create great deals? We have to start with understanding how real estate ownership works. So possession, the right to occupy and control a property. Ownership involves these three components, everybody. And you may not have heard it explained this way, but it's so important that you do. First is possession. That's someone who's actually living in the property. Then you have the title holder, and that is on the public records who is recorded on title as being vested as the owner, and that is done through a deed. And then the third component of ownership is the equity. And that equity, of course, might not be as much as you'd like it to be because you may have a mortgage on the property. You may have other liens on the property. But it's the equity. The equity is the total value minus whatever debt you have. And it's these three that when we understand them, now we can create some creative magic. All right, Brian, I've got some tough tests for everybody. Suzanne, you can't hear me. I'm a pretty loud talker. Little known fact, my superlative in high school, Brian, was most talkative. Can you believe that?
Hard to believe. Hard to believe.
It's unbelievable. Okay. We're gonna see how well y'all can assess these three components. But Suzanne, I'm sorry. Our team might be able to help you with that. I don't know. Zoom's not always easy to deal with. All right. Question number one. We'll see how well y'all do here. Can a person have possession, can have one of these three, can have possession of a property without being the owner of the property and without having any equity in the property? Can they just have possession? Is that possible in real estate? Is that form of quote ownership or control? Is that possible? All right, I'm absolutely thrilled, Brian. We've got 100% of people right now are correct about this.
Nice.
And I'm gonna let it go for just a little bit because this is nice. Oh, got a couple that went the other direction here. Okay, I'm gonna end this poll real quick and show you all the results. So the results are 92% said yes, 8% said no. Brian, how can someone have possession without title or without equity?
Every single renter in America has possession
Bingo.
without either title or equity. Yep.
Right. Little known fact, everybody. The Empire State Building is controlled by a 99-year lease that was executed in the 1950s. It was a team of like 30 attorneys wrote the most bulletproof lease you could ever imagine. Now, Trump tried to bust that lease up back in the 90s by trying to claim that there were mice running around, and there's a whole book on it. It's fascinating. He couldn't bust up the lease, so he backed off. That property's value is so much lower than it should be because of that lease. So all you need is a lease to have tremendous control over a property. All right, so great job on that one, y'all. All right, we'll go to the next one. See, I'll wait on the next one. That one is a little easy. I'm gonna make it a little more difficult now. All right. Can you, can a person be responsible for the mortgage, but not have possession, so they don't live there, and they're also not a title holder. They're not on the deed. Can they be stuck with a mortgage, but neither be able to enter their property or the property and not actually be the owner? Is that possible? I know what you're thinking. I came here to learn, Phil. Man, this is quite a test you're giving me. Well, I have found that the greatest way to teach is to ask questions because it helps everybody learn. It's interactive. All right. Well, I am excited to announce, Brian, that we have 94% of people said yes, and that's absolutely right. Brian, how can someone be stuck on the mortgage but not be a title holder or have possession?
All subject to. And that is boilerplate on the HUD. It's been around for a very long time.
So, everybody, there are divorce situations going on across America right now where the judge is deciding that one of the two parties is the title holder. Let's say it's the wife, and then separate, the wife also gets to live in the house, but the ex-husband's name is the only one on the loan. That's happening all across America right now. Another example, when an unfortunate situation occurs and someone passes and their name was on the loan, the heirs might move into that property, and then after the probate, the heirs might become the legal title holder. So they both own the property and are living there, but the deceased party's name is on the mortgage. And then Brian brought up the entire subject of subject to. Those both are examples of subject to transactions that are mainstream, that are happening every day of the every business day of the year, and judges are deciding those. So for anyone that thinks that subject twos are illegal or something, well, they're happening all across America right now, all the time. Okay. All right. Here's our next question, Brian. And I hope you all are enjoying this. I hope you all are starting to really grasp these three components and how they all play a role in creative financing. All right, here's the next one. Can a person have equity in a house without having possession? So they don't live there, and they also aren't the title holder. Can they just have equity? Can they just have a piece of the pie, but yet they're not actually a title holder? They're not on the deed, and they also don't live there. This one's the toughest one. And I think the pattern I've set up, Brian, is that, you know, but I'm hoping I'll trick a couple of people with this one.
Gotta have a trick question there.
Yes. All right. Well done. I appreciate the fact that more of you had considered the answer no. For most people, it is no, because just by definition, how do you have an equitable position in a property if you're not the title holder? Well, Brian and myself and the team, we have developed a way in which to do that. In fact, we invented a technique called the equitable interest release closing. To this day, just unless somebody has been in our program, we're the only ones who use that technique. So yes, you can actually have equitable interest in a property without being the title holder, or of course without living there. So yeah, hope blew your mind a little bit there. All right, everybody. Well, let's dive into this. First, owner financing, Brian. Owner financing. We might live there. We might have possession. We might lease it to a tenant. We're going to be on title, but here's what's going to happen: the seller becomes our bank. So Brian, how does it work where the owner owns the home free and clear? They don't have a loan. How do they become our lender? How do they become our bank? Like, how does that work?
Well, first of all, it's not super common. If there are agents that are watching, they probably occasionally run into a seller that's maybe flexible. I've seen a lot of, in particular, rural properties where they've tried to sell it. People can't get loans. They've got it free and clear, and they just need to get gone. They need to move, and they're willing to be flexible. Maybe they don't need all the equity out of the property, and they're willing to be the bank and carry back a portion or maybe all of the equity they have as a note to that new buyer, new borrower. So owner financing is what more title companies know how to work with because it's not nearly as creative as subject to.
Does that make sense, everybody? Owner financing, there's a piece of paper, it's called a mortgage, and then separately is a note. And in certain states, it's a deed of trust in a note. And that says, okay, you owe me this amount of this much money. This is the interest rate. This is the payment schedule. And so you don't actually have to pay the seller if it's 100% owner financing. You simply sign some paperwork, and now you become the owner. So I know that one of the messages mentioned earlier here in the chat was, yeah, that sounds great, but it's really hard to get a seller to agree to that. Well, it does require some negotiating skills. I own some owner finance properties, some of which I've been paying on for 7 years or 6 years, and they're on a 30-year. I negotiated with the seller 30 years to pay back their equity. It's possible. Some people actually prefer it because they don't get the big tax bill because it's an installment sale and they want the steady income. Now, it does take some trust. They have to know that you're going to be able to pay them long term and that sort of thing. But Brian, I know you have some owner finance deals yourself right now too, right?
Absolutely. Actually, three of the last four properties I bought were owner finance.
Yeah, it's just when you know what you're doing, y'all, this is a go-to, and one that I've taken full advantage of, and it allows you to negotiate better interest rates, better terms, and there is no credit checks. There is nothing like that. All right. Next is subject to. This is obviously the biggest topic amongst creative financing for investors. What is subject to? It's taking over the property subject to the existing financing. You don't pay off the original mortgage. It just stays there. You just make payments to it. So you have possession of the property or you lease it to a tenant. You are the owner of the property. You have title to the property. And what happens is the seller's mortgage might take up the majority of the equity, but you own it. So whatever the value is above that mortgage is your equity. A moment ago, I had mentioned that it's a very common topic. Subject to is amongst certain circles, and the thing is, I'm often surprised when I show this to people. But Brian, this is something that we like to do in order to underline just how common subject to really is. You can do this yourself. You can go to Google just like I am right now, and you can type in HUD one settlement statement. Type it in. And after you get through AI, the number one result is the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It is a government website. And this is the standard closing statement that has been used for as long as I've been in real estate, over 20 years. Now, it's not always used now when there's a mortgage in place. Um, but look at this. I'm going to have to zoom in for y'all to see this. On the standard closing document, it's the standard one. What do we see, Brian? On line, oops, look at this AI, just out of the way AI. We gotcha. Line 503, what do we see here, Brian?
That's it. Existing loans taken subject to. And the other document referred to is the closing disclosure, section N, number 3, exact same thing.
The standard closing pre-printed. It's on here. So if someone tries to tell you that's illegal, that doesn't work around here, it's literally on the pre-printed government closing statement. That's that's how common it is. They literally make a spot for it. If it wasn't common, they just have you put it in line 506 or 509 or one of these extra lines. So I hope that helps you all with recognizing just how mainstream this can be. Now, Brian, uh, it it's definitely a confusing topic for some because not only are they confused by how to do it, but also confused by the topic of, well, what if the bank finds out that the owner is no longer the owner? Can't they foreclose?
Yeah, technically there's something called the due on sale clause. I've always referred to that since I've been at this for over 2 decades as a paper tiger. It's not to say that that could not happen, but in reality, if you're paying the mortgage, banks love performing loans. So unless mortgage rates shoot up into the 18% like they did back in the 70s, that's not really a huge concern. And thankfully, as we always throw in there, there's no due on sale jail. So it's a wonderful technique, been used day in and day out for decades.
So does that make sense, everybody? The fear of a loan being called due because you became the owner. First of all, like we've never really seen it in real life. I've asked for it. I've asked for proof, like real proof. The only, I guess, outside example of the thousands we've done over these 20 years is where it was a local bank and the president of the bank wanted that property for personal reasons. So he tried to do a due on sale. In the end, our student just sold it prior to that foreclosure, still made a bunch of money, and the seller was still happy. But it's just more of a figment of everyone's imagination. It's a fear that doesn't really come to fruition. And and so instead, the key to subject to is again negotiating with the seller. But these are actually easier to negotiate, everybody, because sometimes people don't have that much equity, and they'll just let you take their house. And so subject to is the bedrock of a creative real estate investor. And we're about to have some guests come on here in a little bit that have been a part of our program, Jovany and Heather, and they'll share some great stories of their subject to tales. We'll have a good time with that. So that's subject to. Now I'm looking at the clock here. I'm going to move a little quickly here to get through the last couple of slides, and then we're going to bring Jovany and Heather on. That third one is a lease option. That's where you lease the property from the property owner, and then you get an option to purchase. So you don't have a title. You're not the title holder, and you don't really have equity, but you kind of do because you have that option price you see there in the slide. And so anything above that option price could be yours. So a lease option is something that we don't typically use when we're buying. We use it when we're selling. And so that's what I want you all to understand. When it comes to owner financing versus subject to versus a lease option, when you're buying a property, you want to get on title. You want to do owner financing or a subject to. When you're selling, sometimes you'll do on a lease option. By the way, the other reason why lease options can play a role is in commercial real estate where lenders do call loans due because it's a very different situation. The loan might only have a 5 year balloon, and so they oftentimes won't allow for subject to. Subject to is much better for residential for single family homes. So, but we will sell on a lease option sometimes to get the most out of our property because we get a little bit of money up front and then we get the cash flow coming in and then we can always sell it later. So, our Freedom Mentor special is a combination of two. We like to go with the subject to of the seller's mortgage and then owner finance the rest of their equity. Now, Brian, we found that it's better to go a little bit more short term, right? More like 90 to 120 days on the owner financing.
A lot easier for a seller to swallow than something long term. That's right.
Yeah, if we tell a seller, hey, look, we'll pay you cash and it'll be this amount, or we'll pay you more, but it'll take you 90 to 120 days to get your money or 6 months to get your money. And we give them options. See that? This special move here, we have done this over and over and over again. And we'll talk about some examples with Heather and Jovany here in just a moment. This right here, y'all, this has made us a fortune. It can make you a fortune too. Where you have title to the property because you took it over subject to, but you didn't have to bring some big down payment because you turned their extra equity that became owner financing, and it's easier to sell that because we do it on a short-term basis. The long-term ones are a little bit harder to sell. That takes a little bit more negotiating skills. All right, everybody tracking? Everybody having a good time? Here, let's see, because we haven't looked in the chat here a little bit. All right, this person said they love subject twos. All right, good deal. It says, if you do a subject to, can't the bank find out? We were just talking about that one. I thought most of the mortgages are no longer able to do subject twos. So yeah, we're not talking, and I love you brought that up. I'm going to go back a slide. We're not talking about a loan assumption. We're not assuming a loan. We're literally transferring title and then just making payment. We're not getting permission from the lender. We're just doing it. And what we're saying is that almost never does a lender want to stop getting paid because they make their profit from those monthly payments. Lenders don't want their loans paid off. I've got news for you. That ends their game. That's the end of the line for them. They don't want to pay off. They want you to keep paying those interest payments as long as you can. So the great question there. Well, I hope we've made it clear on when it comes to creative financing. When you have these three in mind, and especially owner financing and subject to, a whole new world can open up to you. You can do deals that you never thought were possible. It does involve connecting directly with the seller. It does involve negotiating these terms, but they're out there. They're real. We've done them thousands and thousands of times. And to remind you, the best deals are not just found, they are created. All right, y'all. Well, it's time to bring on our special guests. That is Jovany and Heather. And they were backstage. So Jovany and Heather clicked that button to join us. There you are. Welcome.
Yeah. How's it going?
Oh, it is great. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
All right, y'all. So Heather and Jovany, will let them tell their story, but I just got to say, I'm such big fans of these two. Just their smile, their joy. I mean, they were such a gift to be able to mentor, and obviously were extremely successful. Just like the other guests that y'all have seen on these Freedom Mentor Lives, these are graduates of our mentoring program, meaning they made more than $500,000 in net profits, to which we shared in those 50-50. So we're not talking about folks that have done just maybe one little deal and got lucky. These are absolute pros at this point. So without further ado, let's dive into y'all's story. Heather, Jovany, tell us where y'all were at, like before you got started, and how you found Freedom Mentor, that whole fun stuff.
Okay, so we worked in a corporate setting and I wanted to get into real estate. I started reading like Robert Kiyosaki books, and I felt like in order for me to really be in the real estate industry, the first start was to become a realtor, which that's what I did. And then I was like, baby, we got to become investors. And as a traditional realtor, very early in my career, I started learning what it takes to truly qualify for multiple properties. And the question that kept coming up for me is, okay, we're only going to qualify for so many houses. And Robert Kiyosaki is big about talking about other people's money. And we're like, how do we get other people's money? Like, what does that even mean? And so together, we started looking into, we need a mentor. We need somebody that can help us figure this out, because I feel like we both want this. We just aren't sure how to go from traditional to creative and to make it happen.
Yeah. And so then one night I was, before we went into the Robert Kiyosaki program, I was going through YouTube and I typed in, how do you get properties with no money or somebody else's money? And I saw your video, Phil, where you were teaching a class in Vanderbilt about how to rent rooms right next to a college, and then, doing little tweaks, you can make more money. And I said, baby, this is the way we get out of this. Like, we can rent a ton of rooms and make more money. And that's how we were like, you know what? I had a great feeling. We prayed and we pursued it, and it was just a fit.
So that video, it's so interesting y'all bring that up. I'm gonna show everybody real quick on the screen. The video he's talking about. It's this one right here. Yeah, you can see how young I was back then. That's 13 years ago. I I taught a class at the university on the subject of creative financing. He was a professor of real estate, and we had bumped into each other at a real estate conference, and he had asked me, "Hey, you know a lot about this. Would you come to my university? It's a master's level class, and tell them about this. I know nothing about this. I'm teaching them about interest rates and about yield spread on mortgages. I would love it." And yeah, so I had my camera guy come with me. We recorded that. And so that was the one. So that's the one y'all watched.
That's the one. I told my wife, if this guy's telling us all of these different types of stuff on YouTube, what would he tell us if we went mentoring? There has to be something where he would help us. And it's almost sometimes, even when I went through the program, I was like, Phil, you're giving a lot of information away, even on these YouTube videos. But it's just, getting the mentor and getting you directly right to the source and not messing around. It really solidified how we changed our whole career doing this.
All right. So at the time y'all get started, Heather, you're a real estate agent. Jovany, you're working corporate America. And so y'all start doing deals with us. Take us back. It doesn't have to go all the way to the beginning, but give us some examples maybe of some deals. Even they could be somewhat recent, because I think everybody wants to hear about creativity. And, before you came on, of course, we were talking about what we talk about, and you started sharing some stories with me, and they were wild. So let's hear a couple of these creative financing deals.
So I'll jump into one where I got a call, and because of your program, we set up where he was looking for somebody else when he got me. And I said, yeah, no problem. I can help you. And I started talking to him. And because at this point, we were already close to almost graduating. And I was talking to him, and he said, okay, here's the deal. I have a paid off house. I need to get to Oklahoma. How can I do this? I either sell it to you, because he wanted way too much money for it. And I told him, look, we can get a little creative. How about, I had to do some research before I told him this, but I did some research, and I said, well, what about if I just buy you our house cash, and then we can just flip in return. You can give me your property once I get you to Oklahoma, and I'll help you I'll do the research. And I found out a lot of stuff about Oklahoma. So I researched it. I found a deal. It was actually on market, 70,000. I negotiated it down to 55,000. And then I bought it cash. And then I moved them over. And then we were able to, well, there were some closing costs. And he said, hey, I said, you need to pay a little bit of closing costs in this scenario because at this point you haven't paid anything. And he said, okay, no problem, but I don't have any cash, but I do have some silver. And I said, he's like, would you take some silver? And I said, absolutely, I'll take some silver. And so I got creative with the closing. And then I moved his family over. That helped us now get into the property. And then we did owner finance to a veteran, and we helped him get into a house and that he would have never qualified, and he would have been able to do this if I wasn't able to help him because of all this creativity that we did.
Okay, I'm going to unpack some of this. Everybody's trying to follow. Okay, we got a different state, Oklahoma, got some silver coming in there, which is skyrocketed in price. So, but the property to which this person had lived in, the one that you were buying, how did you acquire that one?
We used your method.
Okay, so subject to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he had a loan on his property. So
no,
you're
actually there was no loan on the property.
Oh, great. Okay, so you did owner financing.
Yeah.
You did owner financing on his property.
Yes.
Got him moved out. Now, doesn't that help with possession when you've got possession of the property?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, and they're happy because they're in their new home. They're not even worried about what we're doing because to some extent, we've already fulfilled part of our promise. We got them where they needed to be. So we have the time to get the house fixed up, cleaned up, and sold to the next person.
Now, for everybody else, if you're like, well, wait a minute, what if I don't have the money Jovany and Heather have to buy this other house in a different state? You also could, in some cases, negotiate creative financing with the other deal. But in this case, when you can combine these creative investing techniques with some money, of course, they earned it through a lot of deals. That is just a 1-2 punch because when you can give the seller a few bucks, I just saw a question that just came up. They said, what if you don't have enough money? Michael had asked, what are some creative ways to structure a lease option if the buyer, the lease option, or doesn't have enough down payment to cover, the amount you got to give the seller? And so again, I mean, there's different ways to get around that, but the short answer is when you can create some cash, you can do what Heather and Jovany did here. Okay, so you all take over their property from owner financing, get them moved out, but wait, there's more. You are then not going to sell this property the traditional way on the MLS to a new buyer. You sold this property with owner financing.
Absolutely, yes. Because it was half manufactured and half site built. So difficulty for financing is out the window. Nobody in the planet would be able to do that with a traditional loan
for
veterans, or even for even a commercial loan or a conventional loan because of it being half.
Yeah. And so what did you end up buying that property for? What did you sell it for on owner financing? What ends up being the profit here? I know it's a little complicated to.
Yeah, so I bought the house in Oklahoma for 55,000. And then, I did charge them for my fee there too. So it wasn't just 55,000. Hey, I got you a great deal. It was, hey, this is what it is. So we settled on 55,000. And then I turned around and sold it for 140,000.
Yeah.
The other one in our state.
Yeah. So that's it's almost 90,000. And then you got the interest because the loan you put in place with him wasn't a 0% loan.
No, 10% for 10 years.
Yes. Are y'all tracking all this? I know it's like, hey, Phil, keep it simple. I kept it simple in the first half. I told you we were going to get complicated here. All right. All right, let's get another one. Let's get another one of these. Pick another one.
So pick another one. So the one recently that we did, this family called us, circumstances, and they said the same thing. it was like a year later, and they said, "Hey, I need to move to Oklahoma." And I said, "I know a lot about Oklahoma." And so I was like, "I know I can get houses in Oklahoma very cheap." And so I was like, "Okay, how are we going to do this?" And so they said, "We just need to get to Oklahoma." And he actually is now, I call him my Uncle Don, because I created a very good relationship with him. But I initially, for people, I always tell people to just sell it on the market. You'll make more money. But when they say, no, solve my problem, Jovany, I don't want to do all that. Just help me. How can we do this? And then I know, okay, now for that part was, I got to figure out how am I going to buy a house? And then I'm going to have to renovate their house, and how am I going to make this all work? So I started digging, and I found a house for them, 125,000, $20,000 down. I moved them across the country. I got, because they were elderly, so I helped them. So I was very, attentive. I helped them across the country. That helped us. Now they're happy. They love it. Now we went to go and renovate the property, and that property we put about $80,000 in renovation. It was a huge renovation, but we now have over 250,000 in equity when we refinanced it and now made it a traditional rental. And then when we refinanced it, we got all of our money back. So we're zero into the property, and now we have a property that we're renting out and just building equity.
Beautiful. All right. Well, y'all, I hope you're enjoying these stories, because we took you from the very beginning to after they are graduating. They're doing these really complicated transactions, and they're creating huge numbers. And I'm hoping you're seeing where the best deals are not just found, they are created. All right. Um, any other examples come to mind of creativity?
Well, this actually kind of started because one of the first houses that we truly renovated, I want to stress this for people that are just getting started, because that was like our biggest thing is, yeah, we're talking about the things we do when we had the money. But for most of our start, we were doing things very creatively where we were not spending a lot of money at all. Our first big deal, and I think it's the one that we actually graduated the program with, that we fully renovated this massive house and acreage. It was crazy. But when we got this property, it's in a rural area. This family owned it outright, and they were going to lose their house because they just weren't paying the property taxes. And we were running the numbers on if we were to, do maybe like an investor loan and pay them just like to get them out, but they needed cash. We needed to get them out of the way. And when I was thinking about what we were going to spend up front to acquire their home versus the profit they were going to make, I was like, couldn't we just buy them a new home and get them out and then just owe them whatever the difference is? And that's kind of the first time that we ever started that. And that was the first big, huge renovation we ever did. And that house was absolutely disgusting. So we had to be extremely creative because we were moving a whole family with a whole lot of dogs. And so that's kind of what started this. That's how like helping people move out of state even became a thing, because we first did it in our own state, was just how do we help somebody do that?
So solving problems and then shaping an opportunity around it. Well, I thought was interesting too is with your background as an agent. You still are active as an agent, right, Heather?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, and I've been licensed for 20 years. A lot of the people in our program eventually we recommend they get their license because it adds income. It's like a license to print money, I'll say. Uh, so, Heather, what did you find in dealing with? Because you shared this with me, I thought it was real interesting. Those in the major metropolitan area versus as you dealt with agent in a more rural area. Because you keep mentioning rural creative deals. What did
Yeah.
you notice about how that worked?
Well, I really enjoy doing real estate in rural areas because I feel like everyone is a little more creative in general. Like in metropolitan areas, it's very cookie cutter. This is how we do everything. And there's not a lot of thinking outside of the box. And in these smaller towns or rural areas, I feel like you just meet these realtors that are just like, oh, honey, we'll just do this to get that done. And I love it, and I feel like I became a better realtor once I started investing. Obviously I was a realtor first, but I got into the business thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm just doing this because I want to be an investor. I'm just trying to learn the industry. I don't care about being a top producer or being this great agent. However, I will say that both kind of happened for me. So the better we did as investors, also the better of an agent I became. And then I did actually start hitting like personal records in real estate, and it's fun. I like that I get to do both sides of it. Also, we've had to learn how we show up as an investor versus me being a realtor, and collaborate in that.
And married.
Yeah, and being married.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
How does that work? You two are just such a joy. But I mean, how do you stay from just getting in fights? Because it's business, right? And it's, there's things that come up.
Yeah, I will not ever say that we have never fought. There have definitely been hard times. I feel like 2018, it will always forever, that year will be ingrained in my mind, because we were getting more properties at the time than we even knew how to handle. And we were just overwhelmed. And we've really learned at this point, we were able to retire my husband from corporate America. So we are now just in real estate full time together. He chooses not to be a realtor, so that way when he's talking to these people who say, I don't want to work with realtors, he's not. And I come in on the back end, and we've really had to figure out our strengths and stay in our own lanes a little bit. So we do have masterminds with each other where it's like, what are we working on? What's the budget? What's the deadline? He usually talks to the contractors. I pick out the product and material and say what colors I want, where I want things. And then he handles all of that, and he does the contracts with the buyers up front, so that I'm protecting my license, that there's no confusion that I'm not representing them. I come in once we acquire the property, do all the pretty stuff. And then once it's done, now I put it on the market, and now my husband is my client, which is sometimes a little harder, because he gets all my after hours and my business hours.
There's not a do not disturb.
There's no do not disturb. Yeah, and he likes to be very involved. So I have to, in some way, I do treat him a little bit like a client. And then in some ways I'm like, okay, I get it, because you're also my partner in all of this. But yeah, he likes to be very involved in every step of it.
So
Awesome.
Jovany, you don't pick out the paint colors, huh? I can picture you with that Sherwin-Williams swap.
No, I do have the swap in my backpack.
That thing is like this thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that thick.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nice.
I have Pinterest boards, and then I'm like, okay, we can get this at this place or that place. This is what I want.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, you've obviously figured it out, and I hope you all in the audience picked up some tips. They found places where you do this, you do that. They separated. That's your responsibility. This is your responsibility, and clearly they found a way to make it work, and work extremely well. Well, I see some questions that have come up. I think I got some questions for Heather and Jovany. Edward says, how about the problems you faced, like lead paint, septic tanks, plumbing problems? Yeah, I mean, Heather, Jovany, I mean, y'all have run into some problems before, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, I think now, because we've done it through investing, I don't even get intimidated by it as a realtor anymore. So I'm like, it's termites, or it's just a septic. Like, I do know that there has been, for most of our experience, septic has always been perfectly fine. I have not come across, we've been doing this a long time, since 2014 for me and 2016 together. I've not come across any major septic issues. We've only ever had one termite issue that was so bad. It was a cabin, and we had to tent the house and like bomb it.
$8,000, and
Oh man, it's not cheap
it's
to
not cheap.
in a house, man. I know they get them all over the place in Florida. I've had to tent a couple houses.
The wells, I mean, we've had issues with wells where they're not well water. They're like on hauled water and stuff like that. I honestly think that when it's those type of situations, I just smell opportunity, and it's really, we're still solving the problem, and we just have to present everything to the seller. And that's why it gives us more credibility, because we're not hiding from these things, and we're also not running from them either.
Right.
In case they were saying, though, like, what happens if you find that out after you get the property? Like, do we come back and renegotiate? A lot of the times, My husband is so good at negotiating up front that it still works out. So we're very picky on the deals that we take on, especially if we're putting our money into it.
The number one rule is we don't take over anything until I find out about everything about the house. If I'm going to be giving out money, not even $1 or over $10, I
Right.
always, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but that's what I learned from you, Phil, is like, we don't just try to figure out properties. It's how do we reduce the risk and we can still make it a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what's so special about creative real estate investing. Problems are actually opportunities to make even more money. And it happens over and over again. We have hundreds of stories of our students of when what looked like a problem all of a sudden became an extra 20 or 30 grand in profit. So yeah, we have to encourage problems because that's where we fit into the marketplace. If everything is a really cookie cutter situation and you have a homeowner that has plenty of time to sell and their home is beautiful and they're in a great market, they're going to hire a real estate agent. It's going to be a pretty listing, and the agent's going to get paid their 2.5%, 3%, and it's going to be a great listing. And that's what the agents are all fighting for. They all want the beautiful, pretty listings. We want the don't wanters. We want the
Yes.
stuff that the misfits. And in fact, I've done this before. I think y'all have probably seen it on YouTube. Misfit toys from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Like we're in the business of misfit houses. And
One,
so
one big thing though, Phil, is that where it reduced a lot for me was on the phone calls. I was always on calls listening to other students, and I always listen and I hear everybody's problem. So when I heard the coaches say, "Oh, you do this or you do that," and then when next week the follow up, I'm like, I want to hear what happened. And then I heard what happened. It's like, oh, so I learned so much that when I started getting these deals, I was like, we could do this, or we could do that. And then we have the coaches, and it was always just, it was very wonderful to have support. And that was the great part of it.
Having the opportunity to mastermind with anyone, if you think about it, yeah, sure, we could probably learn some of this stuff from, free videos online or just from experience from other people, but it's a totally different experience when you actually have the opportunity to mastermind with somebody who does what you do and understands what you do. Like, I just couldn't imagine being in this space and not having that resource.
absolutely. Brian, we just saw a message from Justin. He says, besides these coaching calls, do you have access to the coaches at any time? Heather, Jovany, how did you feel about access to me, Brian, and the team? Were we there for you?
Yeah, you were absolutely there for us. But one thing that early on that I learned is that in real estate, nothing is so important that you're like, oh my gosh, I need to know right now. I always, because the way we set it up and the posture that you have with the sellers, if you're getting those where I have to answer right, then that means that something in your presentation did not land right, because I always told them, hey, I got a business partner. I got people that I got to answer to. Let me figure that out. That's a great question. And then it bought me time every single time, not one time. And sellers were always thankful, like, oh, thank you, Joanna. Thank you for this, or thank you for that. And it was so, but I knew that there was going to be a call the next day. There's calls every single day.
Yeah.
And you were consistently on them, and it was awesome to see the progression because you just followed and did what you were told to do, and it became more and more reflexive. And one of the things I loved the most, if I recall, after you graduated, you were still jumping on and running a few deals past, and you guys developed the skill of what to say no to, which we all know
Yes.
is a very important thing to not get caught up. Just because you can do creative methods doesn't always mean you should. And I think you guys really mastered that piece as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say learning what to say no to is also huge. Whether you're a realtor or an investor or both, that is huge because it's not always the right fit. That's huge.
I always tell my sellers 95% of this, because they say, how do you know you're going to get this? I go, well, 95% of it is me talking to you and getting a feel for how we are going to interact with each other. And that always worked for us. But believe me, it was it was a lot of black eyes going through this, but I had the support. And a lot of the times I jumped on the calls because I wanted to hear what the coaches responded to them. And I also, in my mind, this is what I would do all the time. I would answer it in my just out loud, and then I would hear how the coach responded to see if I'm getting better and better at it.
Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you put in the effort towards learning what to do, and we're there right with you every step of the way. And the more you all are putting in, the more we're putting in, and together, that's where the magic happens. And so, for those of you that are that would like to be in the shoes of Heather and Jovany, someone had asked, at some point they've made a $500,000, shared that 50-50, and got on to do more deals. Yes, Heather and Jovany have been incredibly successful, like everyone you've seen on here. If you'd like to be like them, um, then I have a quick question for you, and that is, would you like to learn more about our mentoring program? Would you like to learn more about our mentoring program? And because you were asking some great questions there, and I'm sure you're all going to have a lot more questions, and we'd love to answer them for you. As you can tell, Brian, myself, and Heather and Jovany, we're an open book. We love to share what we've learned, and so for those of you that want to be like Heather, you want to be like Jovany, maybe you're looking at that and you see the smile on their face. Brian, I heard someone say the other day, they said, money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure brings a smile to your face, and I thought that was good. So if you'd like to learn more about being mentored by me and our team, just go ahead and select yes right there. We've got a great group of people in our team. You've gotten a chance to know me, of course, and Brian, but we have a lot of people behind the scenes that have been with us a very long time as well, that can help answer your questions and help figure out if what we're doing is the right fit for you. Okay, so if you'd like to learn more about being mentored by us, then how would you like to connect with us? You can connect with us tonight. We have a few people available to connect with you, or you can schedule for later. And you heard where Jovany was talking about how he knew that there was another call the next day, and he knew there was something coming up the next day. We try to be as convenient as we can be for you, because we know how busy everybody is. Let's be real. There's a lot going on in this world. We thought we'd get more time with technology. Not really, right? It's just more and more stuff going on. So if you'd like to connect with a team member right now, or schedule for later, go ahead and select that there on your screen on that poll, so that you can begin your path to be like Heather and Jovany. Look, as they've said, they've gone through quite a bit in their experiences, but it is a wonderful life to be in real estate, isn't it, y'all?
Absolutely. I mean, I would have never retired from corporate America at 38 years old. I told my kids I would do it before 40, and I got it at 38 because I worked my guts out. There's a lot of students that are successful in different areas, but it was just motivating, and you just go through it and you keep going through it. And we just grew together doing this.
So you all think about that. I mean, he had this dream of getting out of corporate America, and he pulled it off. He did 2 years earlier than his plan. And this is their life now, right? They've got the flexibility. Heather, Jovany, do y'all get a pretty good schedule these days?
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine him being in a corporate setting now, because I just have a lot of flexibility and freedom with being a realtor and being able to kind of control my time, and like, hey, let's just up and go. And I like to help people relocate outside of my town, and I have fun doing that. But I work sometimes an hour and a half away from home, and we just turn it into little day trips. And I like, that'd be so boring to do that all by myself. Like, I'm glad that he's there with me, and we pick up the deals that we want to pick up, and we can be very picky at this point. And sometimes now we're getting more that we hold and have rental for cash flow, and I love it.
Me too.
That's awesome. Well, hey, y'all, if you want to if you want to connect with us, your next step is to go to freedommentor.com/apprentice. We'll also put that in the webinar chat there. And I want you to fill out this form. Heather and Jovany filled out the same form all those years ago after watching that video that I was giving that class to that university. First, we ask where you're located, the state you're located in. That's important to us. And then what you want real estate to do for you. And then how much you have available to invest in real estate right now, how much you have set aside. And then, of course, your name, email, phone, and then when you'd like to connect with us. Is that going to be here tonight, or is that going to be a schedule for later? And then when you do that, if you schedule for later, then it comes up a scheduling tool, and you can schedule that time that fits best into your busy schedule. So go to freedommentor.com/apprentice. And Heather Jovany, I was joking about this the other day. That is actually not a fake background. I know it looks fake. That is actually the backyard of my place in Isla Mirada. Because if you look at the water, there's no way a fake background would pull that off. But I need to probably do a different background because no one believes that's real.
There was no AI back then.
There was no AI. Right. Exactly right. All right, everybody. Well, would you all please say a big thank you to Heather and Jovany if you're happy that they came out here, took time out of their schedule to share their experiences, to share some tips. Show them some love there in the chat. Thank you, Justin, for doing it. Thank you, Cheryl. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Maury. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, Heather, Jovany, y'all are amazing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. You're amazing.
Yeah,
We appreciate both of you guys.
Yeah, we're forever grateful.
Awesome. And we did actually, for everyone watching, if you want to know more, we sat down for an interview. It seems like it's been a couple of years almost now.
Yeah.
But you can find that on our YouTube channel as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We've got, thank y'all. There's a lot of love for y'all. I don't know if y'all, Heather or Jovany, you can see that.
Yeah, we can. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And there's Stephanie dropping that. That's that more detailed interview too. So there's some other good stuff in there. Yeah. Y'all are absolutely amazing. Okay. So, next is, we've kind of wrapped up this part of the event. What's going to come up next is a video with that you're going to really like. It's really helpful in seeing others like Heather and Jovany that have experienced unique results. You'll get to hear some tidbits on what they've learned. So make sure you stay tuned to that. But otherwise, Heather, Jovany, again, thank you so much. Brian, thank you so much, and everybody else. For those of you that want to be the next Heather and Jovany, you can. Because we are mentoring, we are looking to do deals with people just like we did with them. And you all have that opportunity to get started with us by connecting with us here tonight. And so, everybody, thank you all so much. And check out this video coming up next. Heather, Jovany, Brian, y'all just click the button, enter backstage, and then that's where we go next. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Bye.